So just something before we get started. I got sent this today. This is a little dated, but if you look up on the screen there at the top there, I've got a URL, and that's to this. And it says Advanced Java Tutorial. Some of you have talked to me, sent me emails, etc. outside of class, because there's only a certain, especially in 40 days, let's be honest here, there's only a certain amount of stuff we can cover. All right, but if you look on here, this is an online course, and you can actually sign up and get this book called Advanced Java. It's a PDF. And here's the lessons: how to create and destroy objects, using methods common to all objects, how to design classes and interfaces, how and when to use generics, how and when to use enums and annotations, how to write methods efficiently, general programming guidelines, how and when to use exceptions, concurrency best practices, built-in serialization techniques. If you don't know what serialization is, because we kind of went through it quickly last time, and actually I skipped over it, but if you are working, let's say we are working and we are creating a program with a really complex class where we're making really complex objects with lots of stuff in it, and we're sending it over the internet. Well, it's not going to all be able to be sent at once, so we're going to have to break it up into chunks. All right? That's serializing it. When you bring it together on the other end and you put those chunks back together again, that's deserializing it. All right? So it's kind of like if you could imagine, you know, like right now, I asked my wife the other day, now she's to the point where she's like, I'm not talking about buying a house until we sell our house. And I said, Jesus, you know what? This is what I said to her. I said, I just wish we could pick up the effing house and just transport it or take it and bring it over here brick by brick and put it back together again. If we did that, if I could take it apart brick by brick, all right, I'd be serializing the house. If I took it apart, if I brought it over here, bought a lot, and put it back together again, I'd be deserializing. And objects work the same way. All right? Some of these are advanced topics. Reflection is, as it says, it's the ability of the program to examine itself at runtime and possibly even make changes to itself based on user input and other things, the environment or whatever. All right, so there's a bunch of other stuff in here too if you're interested, okay? If you're not a problem. I just thought I'd throw it at you. All right. Next, I thought I would take a couple minutes. I've got a hard copy of this for everybody, and I want to show you how I did this calculator. It's, you know, if I get done and you go, oh, mine's better than yours, you know what? Not to be funny or smug or anything, I'm happy for you. I honestly am. Because if yours is better than mine, that's good. I'm never offended when I do a key or whatever and somebody says, you know what, my program is better than yours. I think that's a good thing. Anybody watch, what was it, Rocky 3? At the end when it was just him and Apollo and they were going to fight each other just by themselves. And he said, you know, you taught me good. He said, you taught me everything. He said, you taught me everything you know. And he said, no, I taught you everything you know. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's not that he taught him everything. I do try to teach you everything that I know. And a lot of times you guys push me to where you learn stuff that I didn't know. And that's a good thing. That's the way that it should be. So I'm going to go over this. I want to show you what I did, why I did it. I put a couple of kludges in. Hopefully I've used the word kludge in front of you before. The idea is I got things to work. I was able to test things by kind of going against the grain and maybe not doing things the, quote, typical way, unquote. All right? So here is the driver. Make sure I'm taping. Yes, I am. I'm sorry. Here is the class. The class, I put in it number 1, which is the first number we'll input or have the program input. Number 2, the operation, which is, in other words, the operator. Do I want to add the two numbers, subtract one from the other, multiply the two numbers, divide one by the other, or modulo one by the other? The operation string, which is the actual symbol itself. I wanted to use that because, remember, in the answer, what we were supposed to do in the answer is we were supposed to actually write down like 67 plus 26 equals. So that plus sign is this, the operation string. And then, of course, the answer. All right, so that's it. Hopefully all that stuff makes sense. They are instance variables. I know Colin, he's not here, but he had asked that question yesterday. Every time I create a new calculator object, they will have one of these. Does that make sense? And for those reasons, those will be instance variables. All right?
Why is the operation an int and not a char?
Why is what? Why is this an int? All right, because what I did was if it was a 1, you're going to add. If it's a 2, you're going to subtract. Okay?
If you wanted to do like just hit like one of the symbols and it would have been a char, right?
Yeah, I could have done it that way too. There's different ways that it could be done. All right, that's just the way that I decided to do it. All right, and even though this varies a little bit, it's different from the specs I gave you. I thought, you know, numbers 1 and number 2 really should have been doubles, because if you've got a calculator, you don't always add, subtract, multiply, and divide whole numbers. There's no reason that you couldn't use decimal portions, so that's why I made those all doubles. All right, so here was the constructor where I passed in the first number, I passed in the second number, and I passed in the operation. Now the operation, again, was a 1 to add, a 2 to subtract, a 3 to multiply, a 4 to divide, and a 5 to modulo. So when you look here, I didn't even do a set. Some people would say this is bad coding. I didn't even know if it really paid to have a set routine. I just threw it in there. I said, you know what? I've passed in a valid value. So I just put it right in the constructor. Again, a Java purist might fight me on that and say, that should have its own get routine or its own set or both. Fine. If that's the way you feel, fine. But hopefully, you know, I did it in order too. So that's the first number. That's the operation. That's the second number. All right? And this, again, is going to be a number, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. All right, the getters. Hopefully we're at the point now where we don't have to talk about getters anymore. All right? Because virtually always we never are doing anything with them. Okay? Now the answer I did. So I guess I shouldn't say that. Because the get answer, remember, what am I going to do? Well, it depends on whether or not I passed in a 1 for add, a 2 for subtract, etc. So take a look, if you would, at what I did. I've got this temporary variable, and I don't even need that, so I can comment that out. What I was going to do, I ran the program a few times, and for some reason, my first number was always smaller than my second number when I was running it. When I first started running it, for some reason, it wasn't very random. So when I was doing the divides, I was always getting numbers less than 0. So I thought if one was smaller than the other, I'd flip them, and then I thought, the hell with it. It really wasn't worth the trouble. So this is the answer that's going to be done, so to speak. Again, a 1, and as mentioned, that's this. All right, so there's 1 is plus, and again, as you can see, I say just add them. 2 is minus. 3 is multiply. Now what I did with 4, just so we get some practice doing this, this is what I'd asked you to do. I said if number 2 is 0, throw an arithmetic exception. Now, one thing I want you to understand, hopefully you realized this when we did this the other day, when we did that program, that kind of cheesy little payroll program where we put our own exceptions in there, you may or may not have noticed that when we threw an exception, the program didn't stop. It kept going. This kills your program. This is calling a built-in Java exception that is designed, it's like, hey, you screwed up, you're done. All right? So I did it both. If that wasn't the case, then I said, do the subtraction. And I did the exact same thing here, except I changed the message from illegal attempt to divide by 0 to illegal attempt to modulo, I guess I can't spell, to modulo by 0. Just so I had some kind of an idea. I could have called this without anything, but there's nothing at all wrong with you putting your own message in there. And I did that, and I even put a \n, so that would be on its own line, pretty much. All right? All right, and if it happened to be anything else, which should never happen, I just said atom, okay? It should be physically impossible because in my driver, I'm generating a 1 or a 2 or a 3 or a 4 or a 5. So it should not be possible in there for me to have anything illegal. But as the old saying goes, just in case. All right, and that's what this is. That's what a default off time is. It's a just in case. But that'll never happen. Yeah, but just in case. All right. All right, so here's my setter. Again, this should never have to use the absolute value. I'm generating numbers that are between 1, whatever I said, and 1,000 or whatever, but I did the math.abs anyway. All right? Just in case for some reason a negative number, whatever happened to sneak through there, now it's not going to be negative anymore. Okay? And I did the same exact thing. These two routines, hopefully you can tell, are identical to one another, except one is setting number 1 and the other is setting number 2. Okay? Then I've got this thing here called set operation string. That's where I literally set that to a plus or a minus or etc. Why? So that I can put that into my answer. I use this field, operator str, in my overridden toString method. That's why I did this. All right? Again, hopefully that just makes sense. A 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5. And again, I did put a default in there. You could make a case and say, you don't have to do that. Yeah, I did it anyway. And you have to return something when you override toString. I'm sorry, right here, bless you. I could have made this a void because I don't even know why I did that, but I made it a string. I had to return something, so I'm just returning the empty string. So probably I could have just as easily made that a void. Okay? Here was the toString. Not much in it. I did a decimal formatter. I just did it locally right there. And I said get number, followed by a space, followed by that operation str. So that's going to be a plus sign, a minus sign, a multiply sign, a divide sign, or a modulo sign. The second number, and then the formatted get answer to 2 decimal places. Are there any questions on anything that I just went over? You might have to look at it, but is there anything as we went over it that didn't make sense? Because next week when you take your regular test, you're going to have to do some stuff where you're going to be throwing your own exceptions that you write in addition to be able to do stuff with inheritance. I mean, that's what the whole test will be. I'm not going to be surprised if one or more of you finish that test early. All right, maybe within a couple hours, maybe within an hour. I don't know. But I'd rather give you the whole period just in case you need it. All right, so here is the driver. That's the last page of the handout that I gave you. And I've got in here JavaX swing. And again, that's for the J option pane. You all know this, or you should. I don't really need all that stuff. I could have just said here, J option pane. That would have worked fine too. Either that or this would work. Here, because I do a random number, all right, I did put a couple things in here. I declared up on top here my constant for my array size, and this was seeding the rand, okay? Now, the way that I did it might be different than the way any of you did it, which is fine, all right? But if you look up on the screen here, here is the first number that I want to randomly generate. Here is the second number that I want to randomly generate. And here is the operation that I want to randomly generate. 1 to add, 2 to subtract, etc. All right? Now, if you look at this, it may look a little funky because the first number just says, give me a random number between 1 and 1,000. When I did that, I was never getting 0. Did you hear what I said? I was never getting 0. I must have ran it 20 times. I never once got a 0. So what I said was, okay, every 5th time you go through here, no matter what the number 2 was generated, make it a 0. Because I figured I'd have 4 or 5 of them then, and the chances were pretty good that 1 or 2 of them would have been a divide or a modulo. So I was forcing that to happen. Are there other ways of doing it? Sure. We could have done it in other ways just as well. But I'm just telling you, that's the way I did it. All right? And this was the 1 for add, 2 for etc. Now what's interesting, or at least I thought it was interesting, is if you look at this routine, I'm not done with the other one, but if you look at this routine, notice that I'm putting in integer values. I didn't have to, but I'm inputting integer values, but I'm returning as a double. For lack of better words, what that's going to do is like put a 0.0 on the end. All right? But with this one, this goes back to what Valerie had asked before. This is an int. And since I want it to be the integer portion, I cast it right there to make that an int. Again, just to throw some stuff out at you. We've done a lot of this stuff before. And then here, now I've got all the information. I've got everything, right? There's N1. N2 is going to be set either here or here, and my operation is set here. So in here, I'm instantiating, since that's in a loop that goes 25 times, I'm instantiating it 25 times. All right? Then once I'm all done, I just go and print it out. So what you'll see, just do a save while I don't think I've changed anything, but when I run this, you'll notice that it got through here, and it did the first ones, and then it blew up on number 6. What's number 6? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Every fifth one. So there was a 0 in there. There was a 0 in there, and that 0, all right, happened to work with either, I guess in this case, it was a divide. So it blew up right there. I can run it again and keep running it. Typically, if I ran it enough times, it started to puke out with the first one. All right? And then it did that 2 or 3 times. Now it got down to the 16th one. So you can see when you look here what's going on. It generated a 0 here, but it was an add, so it worked. It generated a 0 here, but it was a multiply, so it worked. It generated a 0 here, but it was a multiply, so it worked. And it generated a 0 for this one. But since it was a divide, it blew up. Does all that make sense? All right. Now, it is possible for you to do different things where we could have literally set this up so that even if it called that our arithmetic exception, you could have gone in there and probably done some work and make it not so that we would have gotten a message or whatever, but not have the program stop. There's a lot more to exception handling than what I'm giving you. All right? Again, I'm giving you what I think I can handle and I think you can handle in the amount of time we're going over this. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. All right? But I'd like to show you something if you look real quick, and I'd like everybody, if you would, to follow along with me. All right? I'm going to go into where I have my master folder, so to speak, over here on the desktop. Mine is called payroll. I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to just put a new folder in here, and I'm going to call this Gui payroll. All right, so I'm making a new folder in my master folder that's called Gui payroll. We're going to do something. You don't have to turn it in. All right, you don't have to turn this in, but I just wanted to show this to you. I'm going to make another folder here that I am going to call, maybe I already have that, I don't know. Gui Calculator. I don't think I have one called that. Calculator. There. All right. And it'll be easiest to show you it with this one that's the Gui Calculator. So I'm going to come in here. Mine's still running, so I'm going to stop my run and close my project and do a new project. Okay? So I'm coming in here to do a new project. I'm going to accept all the defaults, okay? And I'm going to put my one in here that was for my Gui Calculator. Okay? And if you get to that point, stop. Don't go on. Don't create a calculator class. Don't do anything. Just stop right there. All right? So yours should pretty much now look like this. Okay? And I'm taking for granted that if I give you a couple minutes, you can all do that. First thing to show you, you may care, you may not care. But would you agree, I'm not asking you to do this, but would you agree, we've always done this. We right mouse click on there, we choose new, we go to Java class, we type in something like edu.rankin.jpscott.payroll. And it makes for us the package, and it puts the class under it. Everybody agree with that? Well, you may or may not know this. I just showed you what I consider to be a shortcut. But when you right mouse click on here, you can go there to create your package as well. You might care, you might not care. So if I chose that, all right, and I can choose it, that's not a problem. But if I chose that, I can go in and I'll type in edu.rankin.jpscott. And boom, there it made my package for me. Does that make sense? All right. Why don't you do that? So right mouse click on the source folder, choose new, then choose package, don't choose Java class. All right. Then once you've got that, right mouse click on the package, choose new, and go down to Gui Form. You say what? Then look on the screen if you're confused. So create a package. Don't put a class in it, but just create a package. All right. And then right mouse click on the package, choose new, and choose Gui Form. You've got to give it a name. Well, let's call it payroll. That's fine. All right. Now, notice here a couple things. First of all, it says, do you want to create a bound class as well?
Yeah, we're doing a calculator.
Oh, you're right. Okay, that's fine. Calculator. All right. A couple things to notice. You want to check this, because then what it's going to do is not only is it going to build your GUI, it's going to build a class, and once I show you how to do this, it's going to add a bunch of code for you, which is kind of a nice thing. All right. The other thing is, and this is what we'll cover next week because it's what's in chapters 12 and 13, there are a lot of different layout managers that are there. You can use a grid layout manager, a border layout, a card layout, a flow layout, a form layout. I don't know what JGoodies is. That one I've never used. All right. And a grid bag layout. Now, to do something different, and I think we're going to be able to make this work, if you choose the default, okay, then what's going to happen is if you put a button on your screen, it's going to take up the whole width of the screen. That's the way that a grid works. It's greedy. It takes up as much width as it can. So, and I haven't tried this yet, but I'm hoping it works. I want us to choose flow layout. Okay? You don't have to change it here. You could change it after it's set up too, but we'll just change it right here. So we chose calculator. We made the thing that says create bound class. We had it checked, and we're choosing float layout. And once you've got all that stuff, just click OK. You may or may not have seen this before because I don't know how far any of you got. All right. So this is called a panel right here. This is where we do, it's kind of like an artist's easel. That's where we draw and put on all of our controls. All right. If I go and click on the panel right here, you'll notice I get properties down there. Does it kind of look similar to what we did in Visual Studio? All right. It's positioned differently, etc. All right. But that's just the way they do it. And if for no other reason, I wouldn't be surprised if it's done this way from the Java people, so it doesn't look like it's an advertisement for Microsoft. Microsoft, the toolbar is over here. The equivalent of the Solution Explorer, that's over here. Your form is over here. Your properties window is down here, etc. Okay? So if we wanted to come in as an example, just so you see this, and if we wanted to change the name on here, we could go in and do that. All right? We could change a whole bunch of stuff, background, color, whatever. I'm not really concerned with that right now. All right? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here, and I want you to, if you would please, look over here. This is the equivalent of your toolbox. And you'll notice that not everyone, but almost every tool over here starts with J. Okay? And I'm just going to tell you, this isn't mine, but I'm going to tell you a very quick story. All right? You may or may not remember, but when we went back before and we were doing that actual calculator program that we did earlier, you may have remember when we work with a J option P, and I think we're doing like java.awt.star or something like that. Well, Java's got this, and Java's got this. Again, I'm giving you a free little history lesson that you may or may not care about. Back in the early days of Java, everything that you did as far as GUI, graphic types of programs, you used what was called the AWT. That stands for Abstract Window Toolkit. All right? It was known as being a very resource-heavy type of thing. And to make it even worse, you could make a really cool-looking thing that you used, for example, on a Windows box, and you brought it over to a Unix box, and it looked terrible, or vice versa. All right? So after a while, the people at Java got together and said, you know, this works and it's good, but we could improve it. So for whatever reason, they came up with Swing. And they wanted to be able to base everything off of here. So a label became a J label. A text field became a J text field. So everything you see in here with J is Swing. They're not as resource intensive, and they are designed to look as much as possible alike on any kind of platform. So if you did it on a mainframe, or you did it on an Apple machine, or you did it on a Linux box, or you did it on a Windows, they should look pretty much the same. All right? Now, what I'm going to do, and again, we'll find out how well it works, is I'm going to go to JLabel right here, hold on with my left mouse button, and then just drag it over. All right? You can see it put a JLabel right there. All right? And it doesn't even want to let me move it right now. Okay? And right next to that JLabel, I'm going to come in and I'm going to put in I want to make sure I'm giving you the right one. A J text field right next to it. Okay? So I've got a label and I've got a text field. All right? Now the problem is when you work with a flow layout, this is what we have right now. It looks pretty ugly. But when you work with a flow layout, it's designed to fill up a line at a time. So notice if I try to come in here, you don't have to do this, but just look. If I grab another label, notice where it wants to put it. I don't want it to go there. I don't want it to go there. I want it to go down here, darn it, and it won't. All right? And I don't like that, but can I make it do that? The answer is yes, but then I have to come in here and I have to start working with the size, etc., of these labels. So I have to like drag it, do whatever I can to make it bigger, etc. That's what's kind of the pain about using this. All right? And that's what I'm trying to show you. Now, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to put in next a J button. Okay? Boy, this is really a bad layout, but that's fine. All right? Now, what I want you to, if you would please look up on the screen, I think you all agree we're in this file. Notice what happens when I go to the other file. It's writing code for me. So what it's doing is, every time I put a control on here, it's writing the associated code for that control, all right? And it's putting it in there for me. I've got to ask Mr. Wilson, because he's the expert on this. What method is not in here? There you go. We could put a main method in if we wanted to. Okay? I don't want to. I want to come down here and hit enter a couple times. All right? And then I want to, let's see, can I right mouse click and do it? Okay. You know how in the past we've come in here and we've done code generate? Okay. Well, we've done getters and setters. Notice if we wanted to, we could have also chose toString there. We could have also chose to override there. We want this one. The one on the bottom that says form main. So go ahead and choose that. And lo and behold, all the code that you need to make that work was now put on the screen for you without you having to write it. Now, I'm going to go over it, and it probably won't make much sense, and it's okay. I would strongly suggest that for next week, before we go over chapters 12 and 13, you at least page through those PowerPoints that are on there if you get the time. All right? So what happens? Well, what happened was this is a panel. Java's not smart enough that if you run the program, a panel is designed to be put inside of something else. All right, that's the way that it works. So what we told it was to put that panel inside of a frame. And we told it that the frame is basically going to be the same thing as the name of our program. All right, then we said we want to set that panel inside of what's called the content pane in there. And then we said, when we're running the program, when we click the X, get the hell out. All right? This, I don't even know how to explain it to you. Basically, the pack gets everything ready for you to work with it. The most important line is this one. By default, when you create your interface, it's invisible. So that's making it visible. All right? So you don't have to do this, but I'm just going to do a file, and I'm going to do a save all, and I'm going to do a run. Notice, again, I still tell it to run my calculator program, but now when I tell it to run this, instead of getting what we've always gotten in the past, it's there. It's just so small that you can't see it. And I don't really feel like talking to you right now about, oh, where is it? Yeah, no, where the hell did it go? See, I can make it nice and big. All right. What we're going to get into next week is we'll start talking about screen dimensions. By default, it draws this up in location 0, 0, which is in your upper left-hand corner. All right. But we should be able, I'm not sure why it's not letting me drag on this, but it should. I should be able to click on it, and I'm just doing something wrong. I don't care. All right. But the idea right now is, first of all, the label is there, but it just says label on it. The text box is too small to do anything, and we got a button that we can click, and it does nothing. All right. So let's just make the button do something, and then we'll just stop it right there. All right. Again, the easiest way to make it do something is to have the system write a lot of the code for us. All right? We just want to click on the button, and when we click on the button, we'll just have it say hello. Okay? That's it. So, with the button right here, I'm going to right mouse click on the button, and I'm going to go down to where it says Create Listener. Again, if I said that too fast, look at the screen. Right mouse click on the button and choose Create Listener. All right? Then it says, okay, I've got all these different listener methods. Which one do you want? When it does this, you might say, well, it's an alphabetized list. No, it isn't. The first one that gets put there should always be the default one. That's the one you're probably going to choose 90-some% of the time. That's the one we want. So I'm going to click on Action Listener. Notice it says, okay, it's very hard to see this, but what it's showing here is that's an interface. That's what the I means. So we are adding an interface, and it says, okay, if you are going to, and again, these are Java's rules. It's saying right here, if you are going to add an action listener, you must have an action perform method. That's the equivalent of a button click. Okay? That's just what they call it. So, it's telling me to do that, and it won't work without it, and it's highlighted, so I just click OK. And it writes that code for me. All right? So I've got my main. All right, and where did it put that code? It put it in a constructor. All right? So, there's some stuff in here that we've already seen before. There's some stuff in here that we haven't seen before. All right? We've got public calculator. Now we've got button 1 dot. if I had changed the name of the button, all right, it would have been that button. So if I would have called it like calculate button or calculate, it would have been called then calculator or button calculator, whatever. All I want to do in here is I want to do a J option pane dot show message dialog null, and let's just say all we're going to do here is say hello. That's it. All right. Now, one thing you may or may not remember from a year ago, and I know, out of sight, out of mind. But if you remember when we talked and we were at right near the end when we were doing some JavaScript code where we were actually coding stuff that was linking back up to websites, and we were doing some like get element by ID and some of that other stuff, I talked to you about a JavaScript anonymous function, which is a function that doesn't have a name on it. All right, well, this is the equivalent because notice, new action listener. See this parenthesis right here? Everybody see this one? Look where it ends. That would be right there. All right, so this is telling it that whenever we click that button, what we want to have happen is, what should happen is, I should get in the middle of the screen pretty much a dialog box up that says hello. Now that's a silly example, it's a convoluted example, but notice if I do a file and a save all and a run, and I run this, and I'm not even going to move this when it comes up, I'm just going to click the button, and there's hello. See that? And there's other stuff that you can do with it. So what we are going to do next week is we are going to build an actual calculator, all right? I want to make sure I've got it built first before I go and give it to you, all right? And then we're going to look at the payroll program, and we're going to build something with that. Does all that make sense? All right. The other stuff after we get done with chapter, so next week we're going to hit 12 and 13, but chapter 14, okay, and I don't even remember, that's on applets. I'm not going to go over that with you, but I'll give you some applet code, all right. Chapter 15 is on using Scene Builder. I'll talk about that in a minute. Chapter 16 is on recursion, and Chapter 17 is on databases. I will actually give you working programs on that stuff, all right, but we're not going to go over it because my goal is by no later than February 5th or 6th to be in the Android stuff, all right? I wanted to tell you one other thing, and that is this. Where is that? Darn it, I closed it. All right, I gave you this yesterday, and what I want to tell you is I added 2 more URLs to it, okay? And I'll be happy to send them to you, but I want to click on each of those URLs because there's something I want to show you on them, all right? I don't remember which one of these it is, but one of these 2 URLs here, one of these 2, if you get to the end of it and you watch the whole thing, it shows you a bunch of other URLs, okay? One of those is this one. Well, I want to quickly just do a control click on this one, all right? This is a guy, I think he's from England, the way that his voice sounds. He basically goes through and what I just did with you, putting that button and stuff in there, that's what he does. All right? So that's what he does. And the other thing I want to show you, Ethan, this is more for you because you had asked about this. I don't know what that guy is or what he's doing, but...
Real quick, we'll start with a button. Hello guys, in this video,
this is Scene Builder. So if you want to use IntelliJ with Scene Builder, which is a little bit more complex, you can do that. All right. The guy who does this video right here, you can hear him.
I'm also going to show you how you can download and
I mean, he talks. You can understand him all right. All right. But he's the same guy, I believe, who did this one.
Hello guys, in this video, I'm going to show you.
At least it sure sounds like it to me. And it's not bad.
GUI application
he just does something simple on there. And then this second one,
Okay, today we're going to go through
he's much easier to understand.
project using IntelliJ,
Okay.
to make
Now, none of them are really GUI example, are really, I'm sorry, calculator examples. So I'm going to go and just write my own this weekend. Okay? And what I'll do, because some of you are going to just pick it up and run with it, you'll be changing colors and fonts and whatever. And some of the rest of you are going to be like, this is really confusing. So I'll give you the code. So in case you fall behind, you'll have the code. All right? But like I said, the goal is next week after we take our test, okay, the goal is for us to finish up 12, finish up 13 by the end of the week, give you some more practice, and then the next week give you the last test from this book. Okay, so again, if we have that test on Monday, let's say February 5th, it might be Tuesday the 6th, I don't care. But let's say it's the 5th. Then Tuesday when you come in here, I'm going to give each and every one of you, I'll probably pass around the flash drive, and I'll have code examples on there for 14, 15, 16, and 17. So if you want to use those, you'll be able to do so. All right? But then the goal is the 6th or the 7th, then we go to the other, we go to, not to this book, but we go to this one. All right? And we're going to cover, this book has, I'm trying to remember because I just wanted to show it to you. This book has, we're going to go through all 4 of the first chapters, an intro to Android. I'm not going to go through how to use Eclipse because we're not using Eclipse. All right? But we will develop and debug our first app. We will do the layout one. We will do the widget one. We will do the themes. We will do the menus. We will do the fragments. As of right now, what I'm looking at is I'm going to skip this whole thing, 10, 11, and 12. It's an app that there's nothing wrong with it, but it allows you to go out and like read stories and stuff online. So if you're interested in it, you can go look at that yourselves. All right. This one here I actually really like because it's a task list. You all know what a task list is. You know, you've got a button. If you can add tasks, and it'll keep them on screen. But this one also includes a database. So we will write the stuff out to a database. So I'd like to go over all of these chapters and then show you how to deploy an app. All right, I've done very little with locations and maps. But let's say Brady says, well, that's too bad because the app I'm creating in here, I want to use maps. Well, now you've got a chapter in this book that you'll be able to use. All right, I just don't feel comfortable going over that stuff with you. I've done it 2 or 3 times, and maybe probably 3 times, and I've gotten it to work once. I don't like to do stuff like that in front of you. All right, so this book, though, I just want to mention to you that this book, and I don't even know where the heck that is. It should be on this page here. It's 2013, which means that probably it was written in 2012, which means it is 5 to 6 years old. They already have a second edition. I have never found a Muroc book online before, ever. I don't care what the version is. I've never found one online, but I've somehow found this one. Notice it's 720 pages. And you can say, well, like our last one, that book that we're going through now, those are the author's PowerPoints. We don't have his actual book. If we did, we'd have all the code on there. We don't have any code. This will have code in it. So when we are doing something in class and we are replicating what the author does, if you, I don't understand that, you will have the code right in front of you that you can have up in another window. All right, I think that's really important. I'm going to be going, I have the book, but I have the newer version of the book. I have the second edition. I've looked through it, and it looks very similar. You know, some of the drawings and stuff have been upgraded, but it looks very similar to what you'll be working with. All right, so we'll do that for how long? I don't know. Then we're going to have Kotlin for about 3 weeks, something like that. We'll go back and rewrite some of the stuff that we do in here, we'll rewrite in Kotlin, just so you see it. It might be that we do a week, and you might say, I get this. You don't have to go over any more of it, and that's fine. All right? Just so you see this, I didn't know whether to show you this or not, but when we do our code and we go to, is it under generate? I don't remember. No. So it's someplace in here. There's someplace, I think it's under code. There. That's how hard it is to take a Java program and convert it into a Kotlin program. You get all done with it and you go to code, convert Java file to Kotlin file. All right? So if you've got yours working, you might want to make copies of things and then start opening them up and convert them to Kotlin and take a look at it yourselves. All right? Now, in lieu of actually giving you, I can write one for Monday, that's fine. But what I did was I went out and I started to do this. Let's see. I started to say, okay, in that program that we did the other day, the one that has the inheritance in it, so we did, remember we did the payroll class, and then we had payroll be extended by hourly, or hourly extended payroll, and commission extended payroll, and salaried extended payroll, and pieceworker extended payroll, right? So I went back and I said, okay, every single class has got this. And those are the requirements. So I put those in there. Then I said hourly has just these two things, and it has to fall within this range, and it has defaults. Okay? Then I said commission has just these two fields, it falls within this range, and it has defaults. Salaried has only one field. It has a certain range and a default, and pieceworker has two fields that fall within a certain range and defaults. Does that make sense? You could all do that, right? You could just look at that interface file and do it. All right? Because what I'd like you to do is to go and make a copy of that program that you worked on. I want you to make a copy of the payroll program, so copy the entire folder of the last payroll one that we did. All right, the one, not the one that we just did yesterday or the day before with exceptions, but the one with all of this stuff in it. The one with inheritance, whatever you call that. Might have been OOP3 or something like that, I don't remember. But copy that, then go in and you'll have the copy in case you screw it up. Everywhere that's in here that you were using the question mark colon operator, I want you to replace that with calls to your own exceptions. All right? And by doing that, you will now then have practice both creating child classes, derived classes, because we did that as a class, but you'll have even more experience doing your own exceptions. All right? And that's, I mean, I didn't have anything planned for today. That's it. All right? That makes sense? And then Monday of next week, I'll try to come up with something over the weekend where I can give you a pre-test, and then Tuesday we'll have the regular test. And like I said, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of next week, okay? Now, some of you know this, some of you in this room don't know this, but Ethan and Evan and Brady and Colin, a week from today, may or may not be in class. All right, I may not be in class. They are participating in the Skills USA competition that's in St. Louis. I do have a Rankin vehicle. I'm more than willing. If you want to drive yourselves, you can, but I'm going to leave here at 7. I've got to stop at the St. Louis campus. They have one person participating, and I've got to pick him up because he doesn't have a car. All right? But the reason I'm telling you that is I'm not going to plan anything for next Friday. It'll be class, but it'll be a lab day. All right? Just in case we're not back in time. I've heard that the competition lasts most of the morning. When I say, how long does it last? Most of the morning. I said, that's not really an answer. I don't know, just most of the morning. Okay. But I'm thinking if it lasts till almost 12, then we'll have to go back and drop that person back off again, then come here. So we may not be back here till 1 or 1:30. I don't know. Yeah. Well, like I said, I really and truly don't know. They might even provide lunch there. I have no idea. I have been given almost no information about this, other than You know, do your students want to do this? Do your students want to do that? They're telling us we got to wear T-shirts, but they never gave me the T-shirts. You know, so I don't have a clue. All right. So do you understand what I'm asking you to do? Anybody who does not? Again, go back to the program that we did as a class last week that has inheritance in it. So that it has the payroll class in it with the payroll driver, and it also has the hourly, and it has the piece worker, and it has the commission, and it has whatever the other one was, piece worker, whatever. And make a copy of that whole folder, then go back in and try to throw some of your own exceptions, which means you have to write your own exception classes, like we did yesterday in class. All right? I'm going to do the same thing. When I get done, I'll show you what I did. It may be similar to what you did. It may be totally different from what you did. All right? You need a break. Go ahead and take one.